All right. We back.
Oh, no
Uh,
countdown.
no countdown.
Okay,
We ain't
then.
got a countdown,
We
nothing.
getting
We
better
just back
then.
up in
We
this
getting
bad boy.
good.
It's seed talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. We back up in this, man. We got a good episode. I'm feeling kind of good. Let me get a little bit of catch up, started. I'm feeling kind of good. We had a very, very successful grill party experience January 13th at Langston Hughes.
Congratulations.
It was sold out, freed out, reserved out, all the tickets. We had to stop, taking, tickets and whatnot. And we just rocked it. Hip hop, spoken word, storytelling theater at its finest. The vendors were there. People stayed. They had to kick us out the building at midnight. It was dope. That set us up for Tacoma Art Museum. March 28th, we'll be there for another grill party experience. So there'll be a link where you can get your freedom tickets there too, so you can go check that out. And that's going to go real fast because there's only 100 tickets available. But shout out to the Tacoma Art Museum, shout out to shout out to the city of Seattle, the Department of Neighborhoods, for giving us the opportunity to create these safe and sacred places and spaces, real talk, for us to feel, heal, build, and grow. So it's dope, man. I love it. Had a lot of people come from out of town. My mom came from Cincinnati, brought her husband. My man Prostel came from Detroit. The Midwest was in the house. My little brother, spiritual brother, Jay, came from the Bay Area. And we really put it down, man. Let them know, man, that Black folks and copper people is definitely creating a carbon footprint in Seattle. We got a lot of, Black culture and history in Seattle. So I'm looking forward to Black History Month too, because there's a lot of good topics that come, out of that month and whatnot. So anyways, yeah, Seed Talk, make sure y'all donate and whatnot. My subscription to StreamYard is not free. So go ahead, hit me up, Cash App, $ Logic On Man, and Venmo at Logic On Man. And make sure you're all sharing and commenting on this. If in the YouTube universe, make sure that you are subscribing and banging that like button, whatever they do over there in the YouTube universe. But glad to have y'all back, man. I want to dive into this topic real quick, and I want to talk about this Katt Williams. You know what I'm saying? And I want to take it a little bit step further. Bobby sent me the spoof from Saturday Night Live. That joint was hilarious.
I heard people talk about, but I have not seen. I probably watch it
Come on,
after.
Katt. Hey man, shout out to Shannon Sharp, man.
Shout out to Unc, man. Shout out to Unc.
That guy, Shannon Sharp, is definitely making lemonade out of lemons, man. You could tell he was, just a jock, and he has morphed into a journalist, even though he don't want to claim that, because journalism takes him to a different standard. He
Takes
can't
him to
just
accountability.
Exactly. Then he can't just exactly, because I was listening to him. I said, come on, Shannon, bro. You can't just say you're not a journalist. And then the bar drops low and say, oh, these aren't interviews. These are conversations. Dog, come on, bro. You're playing games now. So
Let him be.
But I wanted to ask y'all real quick. This has been on my mind. And I got a couple different ways I want to go down this little rabbit hole, and I'm gonna, I always lead y'all there. I'm a pretty good quarterback. I just lead y'all there. But I want to know what y'all, because I have a confession, man. I have had this fascination and this attraction towards gossip, podcast, and media for a minute, man, and I have to check myself because I will tune into some Tasha K with her rumor mill when I know that they're going to be asking people those questions to get stuff started, or the Adam 22. I'll watch that before. Yeah, man. That, and I'm going to get further into that, or the DJ Vlad, where he's asking people questions that he knows the answer to, and he just getting people started. I felt like Shannon did that with the Katt Williams. I want to see if y'all agree with me or disagree with me about that or understand where I'm coming from. I felt like there was a lot of leading there. I felt like when you produce a show, you know what your guest is going to talk about. And I feel like it was his intention to go viral. Why wouldn't it be? I don't think that's a stretch. And that he was kind of leading Katt down a pathway to talk about other comedians. Now I want to know if y'all agree with me on this one too. I think it's as sophisticated as all the comedians that he had on prior to Katt was leading up to Katt to make a response. That's my theory. I can't prove that, but that would be damn good podcasting. I'm just trying to give, brother Shannon Sharp his props. But do y'all think that's instigating? And I wanted to take it a step further in the community too. Like if you're asking someone about a conflict they have with someone, kind of like to, just get their read on it. Like, whoa, how do you feel about that? Knowing that, what I'm saying, it might elicit a certain response. Or if you're sharing information from another person to another person, knowing it might be received in a very, negative way or, confrontational way, is that instigating? And if it is, what kind of impact does that have not only on like the relationship between those two people, but just our community? It seems like we're kind of like becoming that stereotypical community where if you want to go to like some scoop and some gossip, go to a podcast that's been inspired or influenced by Black culture.
Well, let me ask this question. I'm not trying to sound silly, but what's the difference between instigating and baiting? Are they the same?
Depending on what you're trying to bait them.
Okay.
Because baiting can be just like trolling. Trolling doesn't mean necessarily, baiting doesn't mean that I'm baiting you, to be in conflict with someone. Baiting is just like I'm dangling something knowing that I'm trying to, elicit a certain response. Instigating is like when I go to Bobby and be like, hey man, Precious was saying you look like Mighty Mouse. You know what I'm saying?
I never just said that, Bobby, just in case you will try. I never said that about you. I may say Prince, but I never said Mighty Mouse.
I could have. Well, she
still bad because you look like a pair of corduroy pants over there with his color right now.
See, here we go with the plantation politics. I think what she said is if Mighty Mouse and Prince had a baby, it would be Bobby Zander. But that's neither here or there. Is that instigating though? Like if I had, Bobby on the show and I start telling him stuff that, Precious said about him.
Well, you would be considered shit started if I actually did said that. But I don't know if I would call that instigating, but I will say it's baiting. Here's why. Because you just say you dangling something in faith, knowing you're going to get a response out of it. So that to me, that's more of a baiting than instigating. I'm not saying that it can be, but I say that's more baiting than anything. And what happened on that show is kind of no different what happens on a lot of other gossip show or any interview show. They're all going to bait them with a question that they know is going to stir something for the views. And I mean, hell, if you want to go there, it kind of happened in interviews at a job. They may bait you with a question that just to see how you will react to it. And I think that's where the PR kind of comes in to help you how to handle or navigate those type of questions. Like, I know it's funny you brought up Vlad. I remember when he was interviewing Omarion, and he had a question about his ex, I think her name Crystal or whatever, getting a little fizz. And I know he was baiting them. He kept on asking about them consistently. And I have to say, whoever's Omarion PR, they I hope they got their dues because he answered it well. Vlad was baiting him in hope that he was gonna bite and start spilling all kind of tea, but Omarion did not do that. So I think it's more of a baiting than it is actually instigating, because bait, you putting it out there hoping to get bite. You hoping to bite it. Like, cause you going to Bobby said he looked like Mighty Mouse. It's not necessarily instigating, especially if he know I didn't say that. So it's not necessarily instigating. It's not necessarily instigating, but baiting will definitely. I would definitely say that. But what does it have any impact on us as a community? In all realness, no, because rumor and gossip been around for decades. It always have been around. I think we now have taken to a different level to now it reaches people, to form each corners of the world now compared to how it was back then. You only got your gossip and rumor, whether word on the street, whether it's in a magazine or the radio, and that was pretty much it. So it just evolved. But gossip, rumor mills, that's been around forever. It's been around forever. So does it impact us as a community? The only people that's going to get impact is who got baited and who got talked about. That's who it's going to impact. But that's just my take.
What you thinking, Bobby? Because I got a response to all that what she just now said.
Go ahead, hell.
Well, Mocha Amen. What I was thinking. What I was thinking is that.
Oh, Mocha.
What I was thinking is that. The last sentence that P said should be true. It should be that if you ask me a question about myself or a comment that somebody makes about me, it really should only concern me and the person who made the original comment. But the reality is, and I'll use this example with like Keke Palmer and Darius Jackson, that there's a reverberation in our community. It's almost like someone's thrown a rock into a pond. And then people take formation, they take sides. So I don't think that it's nearly as benign as just people talking and the people who are parties to the conversation essentially caring. And I think that that's part of the toxic nature right now that we have in our community, where people are attaching themselves to topics and to gossip that really shouldn't have any impact on their lives at all. Because I don't understand the idea of jumping on a page to defend Darius Jackson or to attack Keke Palmer. I don't know them. They're so far away from me. Like, what is that about? Why are people so invested in that? But that's what I see all the time. So I definitely think that it's beyond just the people who are involved at this point, and that we actually have pretty unhealthy responses at this point as a community to these things, to these people that are out there in the world that we don't know, because we're personalizing everything that's happening. Every situation that's happening is being personalized and compared to things that are happening in our everyday lives. So, you're seeing people who are triggered by domestic violence commenting on a situation that they don't know anything about because it may remind them of something that they know or something they've experienced. So I think it shows how much trauma people are experiencing when they're grabbing on to trauma that people out there millions of miles away are having, and they're feeling like they need to respond to it because maybe that's all they can do. But I do think that it's a sign of a deeper trauma or more issues that are happening in the community. And it's unfortunate just how aggressive some people have become over this, what used to be tabloid information, frankly.
What kind of impact you think it has on the community? You think it?
I think it's a net negative. I don't think it's positive. I don't think there's a single example that you can give me where someone brought up something spicy or interesting, I guess, or juicy, and it turned out of people coming together on that issue. I've never seen that happen one time. I mean, you could list all the people that you want, whether it's like, who's another person that I see on the Facebook feed, like Jason Lee, for example. Like, people, imagine like something that I think is even more crazy is one person taking an interview to talk about an intimate situation they had with someone else without that person's consent. Like, why would you get on there? Like, why is that okay? But we know that there's a market for that information. So to your point about, Shannon Sharp, like, obviously he understands that there's certain information that he can distribute that's going to bring him more views. And I think that in some ways it's like, hey, he didn't start the podcast to not make money. So he's just playing the game. And a lot of times I say that and it kind of sucks because it's like removing the accountability from the people who are involved, but they are playing in the game. So expect them to compete. And that's him competing with Adam 22, with Jason Lee, with Tasha K. He beat all of them because he just got the most tea, the most outrageous commentary. Who cares if it's a statement on that person's individual mental health? Because there's going to be somebody who watches an interview like this and says, why are you even asking a person like this in this state of mind? Why are you even putting them out in front of the world? There's going to be someone who finds that inappropriate on its face, but we don't care about that. We're going to exploit the situation. So another example of why it's a net negative. Like, would it be okay if he interviewed Antonio Brown, for example? And Antonio Brown actually is going to start a podcast with Chandler Jones called CTE, making fun of the fact that both of them likely have CTE, or people think that their brains are damaged from getting hit in the head too much. Like, how is that? That's not a positive. But I promise you, when Chandler Jones and Antonio Brown had that first episode, people are going to tune in for that because they know they're going to hear some crazy shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to add on to what both y'all said, I just think that I agree. I don't think it's a positive for our community, because like instigating and stirring the pot is like one of the oldest tricks when we go back to like even grade school. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, you know, they was talking stuff about you. Or you'll go like in high school, I see it every day. So I am just totally flooded and overwhelmed with the negative repercussions of people just instigating it. Like, for instance, and I try to coach and teach, you know, our students how to avoid it. Like, if someone asks you how you feel about somebody, know that they're gonna possibly give the King James version of what you say. So pay attention to what comes out of your mouth, because they're probably gonna embellish it. So instead of saying, man, you know, I really don't mess with them no more, man. You know what I'm saying? That can turn into, oh man, they told me, Logic said he don't even F with Bobby no more. He don't even like dude. You know, he's saying, you know, all this stuff and saying like, you know, he's kind of beefing with dude. Like, look like he kind of want to fight him. Like he got a problem with him and stuff. And I coach, you know, our students to be kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Hey man, I ain't got really nothing to say on that, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we go to the same school. You know what I'm saying? That's how I see it. How you gonna flip that? You know what I'm saying? But I think that also it's nuanced, because you can bait somebody and you can make an attempt to instigate, but it still comes down to how that person chooses to respond to that bait or that attempt to instigate. And like for instance, if Precious knows I have a beef with Bobby and she's interviewing me and she says, hey man, what you think about, you know what I'm saying, you know, Bobby stealing your joke, or you know, when y'all was at the award show, you know what I'm saying, Bobby got in the comment picture and said, you know what I'm saying, looked like you had camel toe. Like, what do you think about that? It's still my responsibility, and I still have the opportunity to be like, hey man, if that's how Bobby feel, man, that's how Bobby feel. That's my dude, man. You know, he said I had camel toe. Let me go back and look at the picture. I probably did, man. I might. Now, steal his joke. I don't. He gonna have to bring some receipts on that. You know what I'm saying? That's not usually what you see. Usually what you see is people that show up and they're ready for that. And they want to go viral just as much as the interviewer and their platform and their brand wants to go viral. So it's almost like they're playing, you know what I'm saying, a game together. Like, let's get these numbers. And I wouldn't put it past actors and entertainers to kind of like be in cahoots with each other. I wouldn't put it past Katt Williams to be in cahoots with Steve Harvey or Kevin Hart and be like, hey man, come on, man. This is our job. We're entertainers. You know what I'm saying? It's our job to create this illusion. And there's a lot of like theories and a lot of proof behind how Hollywood and the entertainment business, they're just out to create illusions to lead you astray. and they actually get props from their inner circle from how well for how well they can do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? How well can we put on a show and create that illusion? I mean, isn't that what the award shows are for, like the Oscars? It's like how well someone put an illusion on the screen to make you believe that a world of avatars and a giant shark that we call Jaws really exists, and that E.T. came here and him and Elliot rode a bicycle together. Like, these are the things that win awards for people who can put on the greatest illusion. And I don't think that goes away when it comes to podcasts. I do want to ask you a question about this, though. What role does race play in all this? Because I'm going to go ahead and drop my opinion how I feel about that. I think it's different when Shannon Sharpe is sitting down with Katt Williams, asking him how he feels about, his relationship with other Black men. And there's a difference between Vlad talking to another Black person, asking them about a conflict they have with another Black person, and him being white or a white Jew or European Jew. I take offense to that more than I do with like a Shannon Sharpe. And it's like, you're making money off a Black conflict, and it hits different when a white person does it than when a Black person does it. Because at the end, if you stir the plot and you successfully, instigate a conflict, you're making money off a Black, conflict and harm, whether you're white or Black. But I feel like it hits differently when it's a white person do it. And I think Adam does that too, man. Adam 22 be having these gang members or street family members on their show, and he be like stirring the pot. If you haven't checked him out, Precious, I know I'm probably giving like him unnecessary plugs right now in advertisement, but it really is fascinating, like sociology, happening and unfolding right in front of your face. But what y'all think about like people like Vlad and white people just like asking Black people how they feel about other Black people, knowing dang well they got conflict?
Bobby, you're on silent. Your mic is mute if you're talking.
Trying. Where's the responsibility for the person, answering the question? Like, I think that your response is probably an average response in terms of people saying, well, there's a difference because if we want to monopolize or we want to monetize our conflict, then that should be something we decide to do. But when someone external does it, it's colonizing. And I could see someone taking that position. And I don't even think that would be a unique position. But for me, and my personal belief, is that the question is still the same question. And the person responding is still responding to the same stimulus. So the responsibility is on the person who's answering the question to figure out whether this is a safe space to answer it. I mean, the whole thing with the DJ Vlad interviews that just blows my mind is that these are guys that are sophisticated enough to come up with an answer to a question, but not sophisticated enough to think about how that's going to be reproduced and republished millions of times. And yet they admit to committing felonies or admit to involvement in things that could lead to their incarceration. Whose fault?
That's a whole different topic.
Bobby is making a good point.
But whose fault is that?
Your fault is on you.
Whose fault is that? You answered that question. Now you could say that
it's
in
both.
poor taste to ask.
No, it's I think my theory is there's an incentive involved in answering the question how he wants you to answer it. And if you don't answer it in a way that provides views and clicks for him, then he's not going to have you on the show. And if he does have you on the show, he's going to edit it out, or he's never ever going to release it. So there is an incentive when you have the power in a platform to answer a certain way, knowing it's going to get you a certain level of exposure. So I would say it's a responsibility of both. And I would put the greater responsibility on Vlad because he has more power and privilege because he has the platform.
But you're making this about Vlad. I'm not. Like, that's the decision you're making. I'm making this about the generalized issue of people answering questions and then not wanting to be responsible for the answer. And I'm saying that I think it's in poor taste to ask certain questions. And I guess you could say it's in poorer taste if you're the interviewer and you're outside of that community and you're asking them about an internal conflict. I understand that. That's just not how I feel about it, but I understand it. And I just think that, like you said, there's this whole production risk versus the talent risk, right? So like you'll ask somebody who's in Hollywood, why didn't this movie get made? Well, we didn't perceive that there was enough market value in that idea. So we made the same movie we made 100 times. And you're so lucky to be casted in it. And that's basically what you're talking about, Logic, in terms of you're being invited to this interview. No, you're not going to get to talk about what you want to talk about. We're going to talk about what I want to talk about as the producer, because I'm the person who's paying to produce this interview, et cetera, et cetera. And your benefit is that you might get some views and have a larger profile. That is the deal that they're making. I think everybody who's a part of that interview knows that. I don't think these guys are that unsophisticated. I just don't believe that.
I'm going to side with Bobby and co-sign on that. And also, I was going to bring up, I'm pretty sure, Vlad, at least the last time I watched, but I haven't seen his show in a minute. But I know he always made it very clear that he doesn't pay them to come on his show, for one. And second, that they look at the question before he even asks them. So if that is very true, and they see these questions that could be self-criminalizing, that, like Bobby said, that falls on the person answering the question if they want that question asked, or they don't want that question asked at all, or they want to have their own answer to it if they were to be asked. So yeah, I see what Logic is saying. Yeah, Vlad is shady for the shit that he does, but at the end of the day, they all offer him the answer. He didn't have to answer. They did not have to answer his questions. Yeah, he may not drop the interview or whatnot. Who cares? There's so many other podcasts that person can go to if they really looking for their platform or what their career or profile to go to the next level.
Oh man, there's a lot of podcasts they can go to, but very few of them. Like there's a top 10, and if you hit a Vlad, that's in the top 10. You hit a Vlad, Adam 22, Joe Budden, Joe Rogan, Drink Caps. You're man. That's a jackpot as opposed to a Seed Talk. You know what I'm saying? And so. Okay. And to get on those platforms, you are gonna want to say certain things that make it mutually beneficial. It's not mutually beneficial for like a Vlad TV or someone if you get on there and you're not in alignment with his brand. If I get on there and I got nothing good to say about other people, that's not in alignment with his brand. It's not. And he does pay people to do interviews. He does. He doesn't pay them all, but he does. He knows the value. He said he would pay. He said he would pay OJ $1 million+ to be on the show because it would pay off for him. But he does with OJ. He pays for it. Huh?
He's gonna exploit OJ. He's gonna cook that man. He's gonna turn that OJ gonna turn into some orange bread and all orange cinnamon rolls.
Yeah. I mean, that's gonna be in circulation. He's gonna be doing flashbacks for years. But my thing, I want to bring it back full circle with my point that I'm trying to make. I'm trying to articulate this point because that kind of goes into a different thread and branch of what we're talking about. I still want to just talk about gossiping, rumor media, and not so much self-incriminating media. My issue with like the Vlads and the Adam 22s when they're doing stuff like that is because they are making the majority of their money from Black culture and Black people and Black guests.
Sure.
And when you do that and you don't come from the same culture, the same race, the same socioeconomic background, then what you're doing is like you're eating off a group of people that you are less likely to empathize and understand where they're coming from. There's certain cultural nuances that come from it. Like, for instance, I would say on the continuum and on the regular, there will be a pattern that Shannon Sharp, based on his upbringing, will have more in common with like a Katt Williams and the other Black guests that he interviews than a Ukrainian immigrant named Vlad, who's also a Jew, who's also a guest, you know what I'm saying, in you know what I'm saying, the culture of hip hop. So I take that into consideration, that if we want to go back and do some restorative work, it's more likely to happen with a Shannon Sharpe and a Katt Williams. I don't like the idea, for instance, of Vlad bringing up, or Adam 22 bringing up a conflict that a black person has with a black person, and then he's going to come in and try to play Mother Teresa. Let me bring you guys together. That stuff is whack to me. That's
only seen it happen one time. The only person I've seen even attempt that is Cam Newton, and Cam actually does. Like, Cam tried.
I'm saying, Vlad tries this on a consistent basis, and what he's trying to do, he's trying to get hood and racial credibility from bringing two black people together. And I think that's trash. And if he had a really responsible platform, he would put other black people on his platform to use those conflict mediation skills and bring them together and try to be this great white hope. That's trash to me. I don't like that. I do like Vlad's show though, and I do frequent it because I like the black people and I like to hear their stories, and they gravitate toward his platform because there's an incentive there. You see what I'm saying? And same with Adam 22, same with Joe Rogan. And so you have these white folks, and Joe Rogan really doesn't do that. He's actually a lot more responsible than in this regard. You know what I'm saying? He's very irresponsible in some regards and clumsy, but in that regard, he'll have black people on, but he won't ask, he won't have Katt Williams. He wouldn't do that. I don't see him. He let Katt Williams do, but he would be more into like, hey man, tell me how you craft a joke. What goes into your craft? And I remember we did a show back in 98, and you were just starting off. How did you get so big? He doesn't bait people like that. But I just have a problem with people being irresponsible once they bait and instigate a conflict, and they just kind of leave it out there. And we're not really teaching the public of how to respond, resolve conflict. We're just teaching people how to fan the flames. And then just like looking to like just nature to like resolve itself. Like it'll just go away like the common cold. And it's like, we could just be making the situation a lot worse. Like, what if all these people like Katt Williams, Kevin Hart, Steve Harvey's all making fun of each other? What if they were on one accord and put their money together and then started their own, like networks and stuff, and then all get charged of rape of a white woman? But listen, what I'm saying is, I think it is, and y'all might call me conspiracy theories, I think there is an incentive to bait black people to, hurt each other, harm each other, and be in conflict with each other, so we won't come together, and create something, for ourselves. Even more, create something that can help us resolve our own problems. Like, for once in the history of America, we can actually start solving the problems that we actually create. I don't think we can say we can do that right now.
Precious got the same look on her face that I do. I don't know if that's because we're thinking the same thing or not. Part of me is just like, how far are you willing to go with this? Because like your initial comment, response to Vlad was about essentially this outsider utilizing, you could fill in the blank. It could be black bodies, it could be black trauma, in order to elevate their own platform for their own uses. Okay, that's also the National Basketball Association. Like there's nothing unique about that. So maybe I'm just so myopic that I've just gotten used to that, and that's completely possible. But at the same time, none of these people are getting into these business ventures to do any of that restorative work. So now you're placing a responsibility on them to be altruistic that they never undertook any of this with.
That's not true. That's not true.
You think that DJ
Vlad definitely, that's why I said it in the beginning.
Because he says that, or because you believe that?
I'm just saying he has to be responsible what comes out of his mouth. Oh, I should get you guys together. Oh, I should put you guys on the phone. And then he'll later on and say, hey, man, I got these two black guys on the phone, and they worked out. He doesn't say black guys, but, they are. No, you don't. No, you don't get to make money off our people, and you don't get to pop your collar that you brought them together and solve the conflict and then say, hey, man, I'm not in for all these, altruistic, goals. I'm just out here to make money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're holding them accountable. You're holding them accountable, and I just don't expect that, I guess. That's not my expectation at all.
It's not an expectation. I'm just holding him accountable for what comes out of his mouth, and that's it.
Okay.
Because, and here's another thing that he does, Bobby. I'm glad you brought that up. Is another thing is he will say that he's not a culture vulture. And one of the reasons why he'll say I'm not is because, hey, man, I'm not just, feeding off these people. I'm uniting them together. I'm a part of the, the culture. I've been doing hip hop, ever since I used to break dance on cardboard.
Whatever.
These stories that he tells about growing up in the Bay Area. So he wants to have that feather in his cap of not being a culture vulture, of not being a colonizer and a gentrifier. And so, of course, I'm going to hold him to it. Okay, you don't want to be seen as that? Then why are people like, what I'm saying? Like, why are you like bragging that someone was on your show, Keefy D, and they talked about a conflict with another black man that led to a death. Then Keefy D gets arrested after all these years later. After he's arrested behind bars, you get in front of a camera and say, I helped crack the case.
He did. That's crazy.
Word?
I couldn't believe that.
Word?
Like that whole thing was amazing. I couldn't believe that.
Like, cousin, are you serious right now? But you're sitting here running around talking about you're not a snitch. Why are you taking credit for that? You pretty much just said that you entrapped this black man to tell on himself, and now you're like, yeah, I pretty much cracked the case. And then he was on the goddamn saying he had Keeling, the detective, for the actual case, and he says, hey man, trying to get confirmation from the detective in the Tupac case, saying, hey man, you can kind of say I kind of cracked the case. I kind of solved it, huh? Like, and he even doubled down, Bobby and Press. He said, hey, kind of did what you couldn't do as a cop. Word? Come on, dog, but you're not a vulture?
Now that part that is definitely a culture vulture. I've been saying that for the probably last 4 years. I've been saying that dude was a culture vulture. Absolutely. And I do get two things can be true at the same time. Logic, I do understand very much what you're saying. That he should be responsible for it. He claimed that he loved the culture. He should do a better job with the responsibility he has having a show. But to Bobby's point, these people are voluntarily giving up this information for them. And yes, Vlad is in the top 10 and cool, but they're still choosing to do so. So at what point, if you want to take away Vlad's power, you have to take away his audience. His audience is black people. Are black people going to stray away from the Vlads? And go stick to Shannon, and who probably more likely do the same thing to some sort of capacity. Probably not a vulture like Vlad, but are they going to stop going to Vlad and stick? He going to be there? Shannon going to be their replacement
to do the same thing?
To do the same shit?
Hey, this is what I'm saying. See if y'all can feel me on this. I feel a lot better with Farrakhan sitting down in between Ice Cube and Common, you know what I'm saying, when they had their beef and resolving their beef, than I do with like Seinfeld sitting in between Katt Williams and Steve Harvey. I just feel a lot better about Farrakhan doing this conflict mediation than like Seinfeld. Like, no, I don't want Seinfeld. It's just another feather in the white man's cap that, oh man, you know what? I gotta keep y'all Negroes from killing each other. Let me step in. I don't like that. I would rather see a Shannon Sharp instigate some stuff so he can set it up that he can resolve it.
Oh, because that's why he's doing. That's why he asked Katt Williams all those questions.
No,
Fix all these relationships.
No,
he was like, yeah, I'm gonna fix it.
But you know what? But you know what? He could kill a whole bunch of birds with one stone. If
he could bring them together.
If he had Steve Harvey and Katt Williams on his show, he would do more numbers.
He's not going to, though.
Well, whoever he's working for probably wouldn't let him.
Oh, jeez.
But
Bobby, you don't think there's a
conspiracy
deliberate effort to keep us at odds?
I'm not even saying that's not true. I just don't like. For me personally, I really do at some point just say, are y'all gonna do the right thing on an individual level or not? Like, is that a goal of yours, or are you here to just make money? Because if you're here to just make money, then just say that. I don't actually expect anything more from people most of the time. So we're coming from a completely different vantage point, because I'm like, Shannon asked the question expecting the result, which was also your hypothesis. And then he said, don't call me a journalist because I ain't asking no follow-up questions. But then you want to take it and now turn him into Farrakhan, say he won't bring us together. He don't care about that.
Say that.
Skill. Okay.
But this kind of goes back to what I said before, that we got to be careful giving these people these titles, any type of roles, especially when they're not legitimate journalists, though. Y'all continue to prove my point. Too bad Danny not on here. Y'all continue to prove my point.
Papi.
And since you talk about conspiracy theory, it kind of dawned when I heard when all that went down when it first broke. And let me just say, that's how the fuck you clear a room. That's how the hell you clear a motherfucker. I ain't seen a room that clear in years. But the point, I'm back to topic. So if you talk about conspiracy theory, do you think that Katt Williams went on that rant to boost his ticket sales because it sold out when that thing went down? I could not get a ticket because he was in Cedar Park just 20 minutes. I couldn't get a ticket in time.
Just like he's taking Kevin Hart on tour, Kevin Hart's former wife on tour with him. Yeah, of course.
Is that going to bring them together? Logic at the end. Is that going to bring the Hart and Williams family together?
Let me tell you something real quick. I think that they're all in cahoots with each other.
Maybe they are.
Katt Williams goes on tour. You feel me? There's an algorithm. There's an algorithm. Wait for this. Katt Williams goes on tour, goes on Shannon Sharp's show, then takes Kevin Hart's former wife on tour with her. And she's actually a pretty good comedian.
New Kings of Comedy with all of them.
No. My conspiracy is a little bit simpler than that.
Okay.
And it's not. And you know what? You can even say this is not even a conspiracy. It's just a legit, valid observation.
Okay.
And by the way, I heard that Kevin Hart's former wife, I forget her name. I shouldn't regard her like that. That's a little disrespectful. But I heard she's pretty good. And I actually heard allegedly that Kevin stole his style from her. But that's neither here nor there. So
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so Katt goes on the show, gets 30 million in views, helps Shannon get 30 million views, takes Kevin Hart's wife on tour, former wife on tour with him. Then Kevin Hart in the same week has a new Netflix movie called Lift. Come on, man. That's the algorithm at play, man.
We need to see it. If you're gonna hate for a good cause.
I just think they're all in bed together, man. I really do.
I mean, but that's Ollie and Frazier, right? Like we've seen that, and then Frazier come out years later and be like, "Yeah, but you hurt my feelings, bro." Like that happened.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying, like, initially, at the end of the day, it still doesn't end up being a net positive because people don't walk away from these things and take them for what they are. Because to your point, this could be just the next great marketing, like the next great round of marketing from your favorite producer of comedy. But in the meantime, somebody out there is taking it seriously, and that happens. And that's the problem.
You know that I'm gonna hit y'all with a question real quick. Because C Talk, you know, we do the numbers, we do the views, you know, because we're what we do. And you know, come on, man. You know, what if I just wanted to, you know what I'm saying, instigate, you know, some better views. And I get on this show and I start talking about, you know, some behind the scenes stuff that happens in the community. Start talking about people. I start baiting y'all. I start instigating. How would y'all respond to me if I just got on the show? Because you know, C Talk will blow up, bro, for real. You know what I'm saying? And your guy Jermaine, he be trying to take me there. He be trying to get me to talk about people, man. And I'm not doing that, man. But how would y'all respond if I came on here and talked about you know who, about you know what?
I would hope you invited.
I just
would hope you invited Jermaine because Jermaine would be for it. I'm not going to roast Jermaine as aggressively as I would if he was here, but I could see Jermaine being like, they're just not about nothing. They're just not, you know, he would just get into his thing about how these are all fake activists and they don't actually want to see a change. That's what Jermaine would do. So I know exactly what Jermaine would do. But as far as like how I would respond, I mean, I would probably tell you that I don't have anything to say about it. That's the truth. I have nothing to say because I don't care. So, you know, like.
Yes,
like,
you do. No, the stuff I would talk about, you would definitely care about it because we've talked about it off screen.
Let me ask you this, though. Am I going to care about it enough to comment on the person and not the conduct? Because that's the thing that I think gets people in trouble. Because if you say, how do you feel about this thing that happened? There's a way to discuss that without discussing the individuals.
No, Bobby, there is no way in the world I would let you. You know, I'm way too.
You're not going to let me be not messy. You're not going to let me be clean.
Absolutely not. No, I'm trying to get those numbers.
This is just a fantasy of yours. I can tell you want this.
Bobby is taking his own advice. He's responsible for things that he say or don't.
Yeah.
It would be wise for him not to say, "Oh, comment on the message. Y'all talking shit about somebody who ain't doing good in the community." Like that's wise not to even partake in that. So he's taking his own advice.
I did it one time. I came in here and told Logic I was going to get fired, and I got fired. It was great. Told him it was going to happen. I got into it with an elder member of the community, right? And I came on the show and I talked about it, and then it happened exactly the way I said it would. And Logic gonna tell me while it's happening, you know, I don't right after the show, I don't think you should have done that. He don't even have it in him. So he's just talking right now. Logic is just talking right now. He doesn't even have it in it. It made him uncomfortable that I was gonna mention that person's name.
Yeah,
so,
I know. Well, we already know that's why I gave the premise that, you know, that's why we do the numbers we do, because we're not into that. That's why I asked the question, how would you respond? I think Precious will let me get off a couple rounds and then try to dial it back.
For sure. You just need Jermaine, Precious. Just do an episode where you're just
I could just hear Precious. But Logic. Just say who it is.
Yeah, I will, but say the nigga name on this show. I probably man, who this person you talk about? Come on, I don't live in Seattle area, so I would not know who that is anyway. But my man, just drop that damn name. Who cares? That be all right. That be all right.
Hey, the stuff that we go through in our thread by itself. Do you know how more attractive this show would be if we were released?
I'm about to delete comments. I'm not gonna be in the chat.
Hey, bro. So you know what? And you know,
that's
if y'all
true.
I wanna know what y'all want us to talk about. If we were that steamy, you know what I'm saying? Let's have a fantasy. Put it in the comments. If we were that steamy, tabloid gossip, instigating, baiting show, what would y'all want us to talk about? Because Bobby is right, man. I've seen some stuff on the internet. Like, what's my guy's name who used to be in Seattle? who used to be the president of the NAA. The NAACP, the Seattle chapter.
Gerald?
No, not Gerald. Carl
Mack?
Yes. Hey, man, there was you remember a few years ago when he was just going off?
I do.
I had to just tell him, man, live on Facebook, I had to put in, hey, man, relax, bro. Like, he was going off, man. I was like,
see, but so here's my thing with community work. Like in a lot of the last 10 minutes was all jokes on my part, but I don't like talking about community work because those spaces have to be safe spaces. It's volunteer work, first of all. So the last thing that should happen to you when you're in a volunteer space and you care about something because you're giving your time and you're not getting paid is for you to say something and then have that reproduced out of context and get fried for it. I think that that's probably not fair. And so like when people do things in community work that maybe is uncouth or is in poor taste, I'm like, okay, but let's keep the main thing the main thing. Did they come into it with the spirit of trying to volunteerism and uplift the community? If they did, I'm going to have a hard time criticizing them because I know there's people who disagreed with decisions that I've made when I was trying to help the community, and they may feel some type of way about it. But I don't think I deserve to be fried for that either because I'm volunteering my time and I'm not getting paid for this, but I'm trying.
Bobby, no, bro. You saying, hold on, Bobby. Bobby, wait, Bobby. Are you saying because you volunteer that you are held to a lower standard of responsibility?
I don't think you're held to a lower standard, but I think that the standard for reproducing your statements when you're in community spaces, so you're just being a community member when you're not a professional, I think that should be lower or a higher bar, for reproduction for the purposes of character slander than if you're in a paid position. So, for example, there was a person who was the president of the NAACP in recent history who got cooked because, I don't know, they got their car fixed and used funds from the NAACP, right? So like that, for example, right? That's a position that comes with authority. That's different than someone showing up, right, to the NAACP meeting and volunteering to take the minutes. And that person makes a comment you don't like about the community, so then you fry them. I'm like, why would you do that? Those two things are not the same. Bobby, those two people do not have the same responsibility.
Did you just now out somebody, bro? Did you?
Really Did I say name?
Bobby, all they have to do is just look at the yearbook of the NAACP leadership.
There's a yearbook?
You know what I'm saying? It's a turn. I'm gonna bring Danny on the show. Danny, what's going on, sis?
Hey,
what's going on? Here. I'm bringing Danny on the show.
Hello.
I don't know if you've been following real quick. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about what we're talking about. Is it instigating when interviewers ask guests about conflict they have with other people? We've been talking about Vlad, how he be doing it with Black people and how that's different than Shannon Sharp. Adam 22, he does it a lot, and he does it with street families, like with quote unquote gang members. And it's the stuff he be doing with between Big U and Whack 100 is it's the coldest, man, because one's a Crip, one's a Blood, and they just be going at it, and he just be fanning the flames. But as you think about that, I want to get back on how many opportunities we've had to really get into this brand and this business of legitimate community gossip. Who have come to me in my inbox. I've had everything from a person saying you need to do a show on Black men taking care of their babies because your homeboy who you're really close with has a problem taking care of his child. And I think as a responsible podcast, y'all should really talk about, Malik and how he ain't taking care of his kids. I'm like, God dang. And then, you know what? Hey, this is not Catholicism. I ain't gonna lie. I thought about it. I would never do it. But I'm a Pisces. I fantasize about these things. I was just like, and then we get the little bit more serious stuff where people contact us and be like, how can y'all have a show and be doing this, that, and the third when this, that, and the person is ripping off the community? And we're like, whoa. And it's like, yeah, man. That's where we, in all seriousness, that's where we had to make some serious decisions. You know what I'm saying? About what we do. You feel me?
Popped up in my head.
You feel me? And it's like we didn't want to report on that. However, I will say this, and I'll let Danny chime in on this. I will say there is an aspect, because you can always take the good thing out of anything. There is an aspect of gossip and rumor media that can be potentially good if you're raising awareness of what's happening and what someone is doing. Like for instance, when I was in the Black Student Union at the University of Washington, the president was stealing money. And we ended up getting into a physical confrontation because I went back to him and he was a part of a fraternity. And I was like, well, your creed or whatever y'all got going on, you know what I'm saying? It's God and it's frat. I don't know where the Black Student Union fits in. So I went back to the rest of and our treasurer, he was in a fraternity, the same fraternity as the person. And I was like, look, here's what we're going to do. Are we going to go to the police? No, we can't do that, Logic. We don't want to do that, man. We don't want to set this brother up like that. We don't want to do that. Okay, are we going to go to the university? No, that would look bad to the university. We're a black organization on campus. And then, it's embarrassing that someone's stealing money. All right, well, then I'm going to beat him up. How about that? I'm just going to beat him up. No, Logic, don't do that. Anyways, it came out that, I ended up putting hands on him and I almost got kicked out of the University of Washington. But the reality of it is like no one wanted to go forward and bring the awareness to this in the public. Now, we had a meeting and then I passed, we were both sitting at the table and I tried to solve it peacefully. And I passed out the receipts that proved that he was, using our, our BSU funds, and dues that were paid from people to buy his books, buy gifts. I mean, he had the nerve to write on the BSU check at the bottom where it says, old school checks where it says for, it said books. It said gifts for Christmas. I was like, word. And I just started passing around photocopies of all these checks that he had, over like $200 or $300, you know what I'm saying? But I do feel like if it's bringing awareness to something, I think there is some justification in that. I do think there is some good ethical stuff that Katt Williams said in that interview that we can walk away and be like, beware. I just don't think he had to say any names. The saying of names made it really salacious.
It definitely was scandalous because that nigga air cleared the fucking room. Like, that was a 3-hour interview. Like, I don't think I could put it too damn long. I'm like, damn, I need to go to bed. It was longer than I expected. But one comment that he did say, and I think I kind of said something similar before, but I will always use his version. It was something in the midst of, if you want me to speak fondly, then you should have treated me better.
You know what? I'm gonna call Cap on that, like Bobby would say, because you don't have to do nothing but fog up a mirror for Katt Williams to talk about you. He has the history of that. I'm gonna give you an example. Lil Rel and Tiffany Haddish were on the rise. Like Lil Rel went on a roll for years, and he's actually funny. Tiffany too. He went on there and talked so bad about them, said Lil Rel was ugly. I don't know why he's calling people ugly, by the way. And he talked about Tiffany Haddish, like, tell me a joke. Tell me about, she's not funny. You know what I'm saying? Like the metric for a comedian is how many jokes that you can remember and you can repeat. And there was no warrant for that. They had said nothing about Katt. They ain't did nothing about to him, that man. And he went up and eventually apologized to Tiffany. But shout out to Cincinnati, by the way. He's from Avondale. I'm from Bond Hill. I guess that's where I get it from. But you ain't got to do nothing wrong to Katt for Katt to talk about you, man. He's a cold piece, man.
He definitely a pistol.
Yeah.
A switchblade.
Exactly. Whatever pistol he is, he's a little one. What you think about what we're talking about, Danny, in this whole, instigating gossip and rumor media?
I would have to say, from a podcasting and content creator standpoint, I kind of relished in it. I actually reposted it. I was one of those people you guys would say who probably was not responsible. I reposted it and I garnered, I'm looking at my YouTube, 176,000 views on my YouTube. And I'm sure that other creators such as myself saw the momentum and jumped on board. So all I did was just put my face in a green screen with the conversation between Katt Williams and Shannon Sharpe. And that still garnered me almost 200,000 views. The only thing I would add to that, though, I cannot watch the full interview because, kind of to Bobby's point, which I think I heard you say or allude to, if he does in fact have a level of like mental illness, why are we kind of extending the platform and putting him in front of a microphone? I might have missed it because I came in kind of late, but similar to like why I don't listen to a lot of things that Kanye says, for those same reasons, I just would not, I just could not listen to the full interview that Katt Williams gave because I couldn't take it all seriously. I didn't want to be like, is this true? Is he making it all up? But also, a lot of people believe he's like a genius. I would tend to agree with the fact that maybe it was a marketing strategy. He intentionally did not go onto the platform. He prolonged the process for a couple of months before he decided he would jump on the platform, according to Shannon Sharpe. So maybe it was all strategy. Maybe he was getting his bit together. He saw that as a whole bit, and he played it proper. And so, like you guys also mentioned, now he's doing a whole tour. So I think it was very strategic. It was great marketing. They both benefited from it, that being Shannon Sharpe and Katt Williams. And so, yeah, I think from a marketing and content creator standpoint, it was genius. But also, if in fact he does struggle with any level of mental health, I think we should also consider that. And there is some form of responsibility that we should all take. Perpetuating and instigating. I think to both your point, Bobby, and Precious, at some point, we all have to assume responsibility for ourselves. And so whether it be Shannon Sharpe or whether it be Vlad, which I would agree with you, Logic, you listen to Vlad. That was a shock to me for you to say that. But for the reasons that you pointed out, I don't listen to him. Because I do think he is appropriating. I don't agree with the whole idea that he's like leveraging off of the culture. I don't think he's genuine. But again, someone's going to have to do it. And then from those conversations, although it may not always be in the positive light, we could all still take from it. And, we have these conversations on platforms like this. So there is to some degree, some good that comes from it, whether it be on those specific platforms or just kind of it sparks up a conversation for everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. To add on to what you said, I come from the background as a debate coach, so I've listened to conservative talk radio for years just to get ready for debates for my middle schoolers when we did urban debate. And I actually enjoy breaking down arguments and claims and stuff like that. I nerd out on that stuff. I usually watch Vlad for to get the stories from Black folks, just to listen to them, so I can get some background on them and then compare it to what I've read and other, media, print media and stuff like that, see how it adds up. And then I like to look for like debate strategies. I like to break down his arguments and be like, man, that don't make sense. I don't like having an opinion on someone and not doing my research. I'm not the kind of person to be like, I don't like Vlad, he's a culture vulture. And they'd be like, well, can you tell me about, what I'm saying? What's the last episode you watched? Have you watched them? And I'd be like, nah, I ain't watched them. That makes me look clumsy. I used to do what Kevin Samuels all the time. I just thought he was one of the most clumsy people, and people just all these brothers used to be like, oh, he's the God. I'm like, no, he's not, man. This is straight plantation politics. Pressure can tell you that. I used to watch his stuff all the time just to break him down. And then last but not least, from a journalistic standpoint, Vlad's on point. He does a good job. His production is on point. He usually has pretty good research, and he usually does a lot of background information to ask those questions that are really, really baiting and to lead you into a certain, corner. You know what I'm saying? So he is good at that. You know what I'm saying? I will give him that. But, a lot of gentrifiers and colonizers and, culture vultures and people who make money off us are very, very good at it and whatnot.
Honey.
I want to ask you a question, Danny. So are you saying that, and I'm going to go ahead because I don't want to put you in a corner or anything and be like, oh, I got you. Keeping in mind that a large majority of our community suffer from some mental health issue, are you saying that you wouldn't have a Katt Williams or anyone on your show who suffers from a mental illness or a mental health issue?
No, I think kind of to your point earlier as well, you didn't necessarily use the words call to action, but there should be some resolve at the end of the conversation. So if you were to be forthcoming with that information, he could use that. So he pointed out that all of these people came on the platform and had an opportunity to talk about him. So he was basically doing the same thing. He could say, you guys were talking about me. I struggle with this situation. And that could have been that. So explaining that I deal with mental health. I have a mental health issue. You guys know this to be true, but yet and still you guys keep my name in your mouth. He could have brought it up that way. But I'm not saying that he should not have a platform or should not have a platform because he deals with mental health. But I think also bringing it up is a part of taking responsibility, is a part of
who bringing it up? The interviewer?
Katt Williams and Shannon Sharpe. Either or.
He's not going to bring that up.
You're saying Shannon Sharpe is not going to bring it up?
I'm telling you, Katt. Okay, it's gonna be a domino effect. First of all, Katt's not gonna admit that he has any mental illness issues, kind of like Kanye. Therefore, Shannon is not gonna run the risk of offending him, saying, "Hey, man, how you doing with your bipolarism?" What bipolar?
Well, he asked everything else.
He's not gonna do that. He's not gonna offend him. He wants to be on it. Shannon needs to stop saying he's not a journalist because he has journalistic integrity, and a person who has journalism at the collegiate level, he knows what he's doing, and he's a professional at it. He's a professional journalism. For the fact that he says he's not a journalist, why he even do that? But he knows. I think
to that point would be another reason why he should have said something like that.
He knows how to keep the guest on his side to get the most fruit out of them. If he were to say something to trigger Katt and then possibly turn into his next target, it'd have been a wrap. You saw what he did to the one sister on from
a marketing and content creator standpoint, that probably would have been genius too.
Let me finish.
Okay.
And so all she did was ask him, hey, brother, what do you feed your children for dinner? And she just asked it in a way, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm triggered. Yep. I think if Shannon asked him, like, even asked him, hey man, have you ever suffered from mental illness? It'll be similar to people saying that he does drugs. It'll be similar to someone saying, hey man, what about the time you got beat up by the 14-year-old?
Those would have all been good, in my opinion.
You know what? And you already know this probably because you do podcasts. As a person who's done radio for KBCS and who's done, stuff for, publications, people, when they come on shows, they'll say, you asked me about this and we're done. He ain't gonna. Have you noticed no one's asked him about that? That's for a reason. That's by design. No one's going to ask him about that because Katt is going to be like, why would I give you M just to cook me? Go ahead, Precious.
You're right. I also want to add to the point of it are the people, a lot of these journalists or podcasts, they know who to try and who not to try. And Katt, them niggas you don't want to try by any. It just remind me of
you're breaking up a lot.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Say it again.
I'm not sure y'all. Oh, my remote fell. I don't know if y'all ever seen the interview Oprah did with Whitney Houston. They know who to try, who not to try. But toward the end of the interview, Oprah asked Whitney if she ever thought about using again or something in the midst of that. If you don't believe me, go watch that damn interview. Like for real, that she ever thought about it, and Whitney kind of paused for a minute. She like, some days she has thought about going back using. For real, I'm dead serious. Go to the very end when Whitney was looking good with the blonde. Look at that interview. She asked her, "Have you been used?" Pretty much in the midst of you still use? I've thought about using.
Exactly, because you know what that means. That means I still use. I think was it Tony Braxton that had a big problem with Oprah after the fact too? Yeah. Because she was asking too many questions, like about certain stuff.
But again, this is go to show they know who to try and who not to try to ask those type of invasive questions. I like to say they know who to try. They would never ask no Katt Williams that question because Katt Williams gonna go the fuck in. They know who to try and who not to try. Oprah knew to try Tony because Tony was young and didn't know no better. So she won't make Tony like a fool. I'm sorry, Danny. Go ahead.
No. So when we give the labels great journalist or you're a legend at what you do, and we give that to Oprah, what reasons are we giving her that credit for? Because she asked the hard questions and she challenges people, right? So I think, granted, I don't think Shannon Sharpe, he's after being a great journalist or being a legend. I don't know. I guess to a degree, yes. But yeah, when we say that somebody is good at what they do, it's because they ask the right questions. They ask the hard questions, the hard-hitting questions, whether people are uncomfortable or not. And I think that would have been just as effective, probably still would have got, to a degree, the same amount of numbers because nobody has asked or challenged him or asked those tough questions.
Why don't you think that Shannon asked him those questions then?
Why don't I think that he asked the tough questions?
How come he did not ask him about being beat up by a 14-year-old?
To your point, probably didn't want the conversation to be cut short. But would that not still be viral? Would that not still go viral? Like you asked the hard, you don't think so?
Mm-mm. Because he never ggets to
the conversation that
you asked me a question. I'm giving you an answer. He would
okay. Well, you shook your head, so I took that as your answer.
He would never get to. He would possibly, from a journalistic standpoint, I would never want to run the risk of him being distracted when I know I want him to do some clapback on the people who had previously been on the show and talked about him. Why would I distract him about a 14-year-old and stuff like that? I will distract him with his upbringing because that's not going to be offensive. Tell me about your life growing up in Miami. Tell me about growing up in Cincinnati. Those are very harmless stuff. He starts talking about the 14-year-old. you know, you might start talking about all the passes that Shannon Sharpe dropped in big games. Can't hear you, Bob.
Have those good questions in the beginning, and then towards the end, ain't that called an alley-oop? You set it up. But when it comes to the conversation that Birdman had on the Breakfast Club, didn't last but 3 minutes. It was still a viral conversation because they asked, well, he came in and he was on fire, but same thing. It was still as effective because of those uncomfortable conversations that they had.
And I have an answer for that. I know Bobby wants to say something. That's a good question, and that's a good point you're making, Danny. However, to add on to what you're saying is they signed something that gives his promotional team, his marketing people to say, hey, that part towards the end when you tried to alley-oop me at the end when you went through all that after I went off on Steve Harvey, take that out, or I'm not gonna authorize the interview. He might have asked him that. But that's also the reason why they said, you know what? I'll tell you about the 14-year-old off camera. Because I'm not going to give anyone an ammunition. I would have loved to ask. I'm with you, though.
Bobby. Personally think,
Bobby. I want to hear from you.
I'm so curious. So it sounds like the dispute that you two are having is basically like one that's above my head, at least, because you're two people who are in media and you're talking about the risk analysis and what will happen, whether the interaction will be explosive enough that it's worth asking the question that will end the interview. And Danny's example is one where it was worth it to ask or to incite the riot because it gave you a viral moment. But from Shannon Sharpe's perspective, it's likely that he perceived the value of asking more questions where he would talk about other people to be more valuable than whatever the blow up would be. Because Shannon was not going to give him anything. Like, he would bring up failures in Shannon Sharpe's relationships. Like, that's where it would have went if you ask me. I think it would have went towards Shannon's failures. But Shannon has been open about his failures. I don't think he gets any kickback. But I think that issue, that sort of, okay, is it worth it to have this person blow up? Is the blow up going to be more viral than the conversation that we continue to have? And I think that you two are taking a different position on that. But I think that it's a question about what people really want. Do they want the tea, or do they want to see an explosive interaction between two people that makes them uncomfortable, but is also entertaining? Because it is entertaining in a way to watch someone answer a question you know they shouldn't even have in front of them. That's like if, for example, so you could see this happening, that thing with Ashanti, Irv Gotti, and Nelly. Like, if you had Irv Gotti on one week and then you had Ashanti the next week, you know that the third week they got to interview Nelly to ask about the previous two interviews, and you know that. So if you're going to ask a question about the former love interest, you know you're going to get a response after that. And that question could lead to the next hour dropping all these names and examples, or it could lead to somebody saying something that they're really going to regret, but people will watch that too. Oh, I don't know what logic went, but I
was looking at him. I was doing like something wrong with him.
But I think that I agree with both of you. I think I agree with both of you that it's a two-way street and it could be successful either way. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of bugged me too, and it kind of remind me now that we talk about people who ask invasive questions. That remind me of that Barbara Walters interview she did with Ricky Martin back in the early, I'm gonna say late 90s, early 2000s, when she asked about his sexuality.
I was gonna say that's what that was about.
And he told her that he didn't want to talk about, but she kept going on and on, and he got up and he left out of that interview. Some things you're just not gonna ask certain people. So I think, again, they know, if journalists learn, I guess, through experience, who to try and who not to try. And that brings up another interview that I think is that her name, Robin Roberts?
Robin Roberts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what she did with Chris Brown after the Rihanna incident happened. I think it happened like a year or two after the incident where he was dropping an album. And, Robin asked Chris Brown how he felt about Rihanna dropping a restraining order. And, Chris Brown said, look, I came here to talk about, I came to talk about my album. And that's what, after that interview, Chris Brown went full bull like the Taurus he is, and tore up that fucking dressing room and threw the damn chair out the window. Like, journalists know what kind of questions it's going to bait on Instigate. Now, I don't know if Robin Roberts thought Chris Brown was going to act up like that. She may not have known. But I viewed him before previously, I'm assuming. So she probably asked those type of questions to get the tea. But again, that's a boundary that she failed to recognize, especially for something like that invasive. And so, and Lottie, I know you came back on. I was giving 2 examples of journalists asking invasive questions. And from Barbara Walters asking Ricky Martin about his sexuality, I think around 2001, and Robin Roberts asking Chris Rihanna 2 years after the incident when he over there promoting his Fame album, which I remember like it was yesterday. I was getting ready for school. So,
oh wait, or when what's her name? The same one who when they interviewed R. Kelly.
oh yeah, well. Should have known
Yeah.
Well, R. Kelly should have known that he was going to get asked those questions. That's with all that going on. Obviously, he was whoever his PR, they failed him. I
Isn't that true?
On there.
Isn't that true for everybody?
What?
It's like none of these questions are actually surprising in the context of, isn't it true that this is what people want to know about, even if it's not what you want to talk about? That's always true, right?
I guess.
President Clinton. And he didn't get up there and expect to not talk about Monica Lewinsky. Like he absolutely knew that was going to happen, right? I mean, so sometimes I think that it's tough because there's a unspoken code, basically, that you're not going to ask a question that has nothing to do with anything except that it could potentially upset me. And the people who are willing to do that absolutely probably do get promoted by these media outlets. I believe that. I believe that there is incentive to ask those questions. But coming back to my original theme of personal accountability, there is no way that you're not expecting that question because you understand people want that information, especially the more energy you put into concealing. Like who is really thinking that the things that are happening in our private lives when you're a celebrity, that people are not interested in that? That's why you're a celebrity. Like that just blows my mind. I can't even wrap my head around it. So,
hey, I want to move towards the. This is really good. I don't even want to stop, but I want to move towards the plan of action. But I want to tell on myself real quick. If y'all been paying attention to me over the past years on C Talk, y'all can remember I've had some programming that I purposely had people on that had mental illness issues.
I'm not laughing at the mental illness before people are like, no.
The reason why I say that is because we're all, have some, as historically traumatized people, they could say, you're ADHD or, what I'm saying, me being neurodivergent is a form of mental illness. So, in comedy, they say you can't punch up. You can only punch lateral or punch, you can't punch down. You can only punch lateral or punch up. So if I'm a part of, the special ed community, then I get to interview former special ed people. And I've done it, but
I wonder what my
and I know y'all know who I'm talking about too. And I've done it to make a point though. Like, your views are so ridiculous, and I'm gonna expose you because
you're going to hell.
like I used to have this one show. It used to be called Funtellectuals, and we used to get on there and we used to have intellectual fun. Now you can go research this. It's on Logic on TV. And I had a guest on who was extremely anti-gay and extremely homophobic. And I just started asking them a whole bunch of series of questions. Is that gay? And they were like, yeah, that's gay. And they sounded so ridiculous. But this is a person who wreaks havoc as a troll and a harmful person on the internet and on social media. I felt justified. of holding him accountable.
And the picture you shared too.
Hey, and you know what? And here's the deal, though, Bobby. This is a grown man. And
Yeah, I know.
And listen, and he verified everything before I put it out.
I was there.
Every single thing. It was all done ethically. It was like, you know what I mean? And he's not that mentally ill, like he don't know what he's doing. He's just reckless.
P.
I'm not just, it's about interviews, but before we close out, I want to bring up this little topic, and I'm pretty sure y'all may or may not have heard about it, but it's about, since you talk about interviews, I want for us Black people, and I know y'all probably gonna come at me with a pitchfork, and I've never thought in a million years I'd say this, but I'm going to have to say it. But for 2024, I'm gonna need for Black people, we need to normalize Black people having different experiences from each other. We need to. I never thought I would say this, but I'm going to have to say it. Here's what I mean. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying that the person who may not have the same collective experience as other Black people overrides that, but just keep in mind, some people may not have the same experiences. Because if we're talking about interview, it reminds me of the Vivica A. Fox interview that reporter came up to her while she signed an autograph. And shout out to Vivica for doing that, because I don't know if celebrities still do that anymore, sign autographs out for their fans. And of course, we all know about Taraji B. Henson, went on that show crying about how she had been paid unfairly. And that reporter came up to Vivica, who minded her business, signing autographs, and asked her about her take. And Vivica pretty much said, what, that had been my experience, and I've been paid well. So in her, and she
You've also been paid very well, being in a series of B movies throughout your career. And so I think it's almost a false equivalence to like Taraji.
Vivica been in some big movies in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, she may not been in anything lately, of course, but she definitely got some blockbuster movies under her belt. But just to finish the point, she's like, I get what Taraji them going through, and I support what they're doing, but I'm good over here. And a lot of people took offense to what she said, talk about her Car Shield commercial, which I still haven't seen yet, and all the other stuff. And I'm just like, well, if that's not her experience, then that's not her experience. I mean, Vivica, I kind of said Vivica haven't been in the red carpet Hollywood fame game in some years. Like, she kind of been other route for so long. So it probably doesn't pertain to her, because she's not in that fighting game no more. She kind of doing her own little thing with them Hallmark and Lifetime movies. And that's not no shade, because that don't rerun them damn shows and commercials make money. So this ain't no diss to Vivica by any means. But I'm just like,
I think she was being shady, though.
You think
I know that's not your point, but because she could have easily just stuck by the whole premise is women and Black people should be paid equal. She could have kept it at that. She didn't have to say that's not been my experience, because we're just trying to talk about, do you know for a fact that people of color and women specifically are not paid equally to their counterparts? I think that she was being shady. I know that's not the conversation.
Maybe that's just me, because she's like, look, if that's the fight, that she's not saying she would have down on them or trying to clown them for doing. Say, hey, if that's what they want to do and they want to do, go. I'm where I'm at in my.
Didn't she say that's not my experience? And then she said something like, however, I understand that it does happen. Didn't she say something like that?
I think she said something. I understand what Taraji is. I guess her stand. I guess whatever Taraji has said in the interview, she understand, girl, and she said she get it. And I love the fact that they all support each other. But I'm good. So I guess people thought that she was down to Taraji. I didn't get that at all. She's like, look, what they got going on, I get it. I understand. I'm all for it.
That'll be a great episode to have. It's like, how much responsibility do we give these Black actors and entertainers when they sign these contracts, knowing how much they're going to make, and then they complain about it after the fact?
You think I got haters now? People really gonna get on my ass on that episode, because I'm gonna keep it a whole.
We touched on it back in the day when Trish was on the show. Trish and I had a very robust back and forth about Friday. Because people were getting on O'Shea Jackson, but yeah.
Okay, I remember that one. It's been a long time. Okay.
Yep. So when we, Danny, did you have something to add before we go to this call to action?
Mm-mm.
Bobby, what about you, man? You, elderly Obama, you got anything to say?
Just been thinking.
Well, I don't think Obama's Italian black. I know I don't know what
he's from the other side of the continent.
When we're doing Saturday Night Live and Dave Chappelle skits, it don't matter if Obama is white and Italian like Bobby. Hey, Bobby over there looking like
I'm subbing in. I'm subbing in either way.
Yeah, bro.
Bobby talking trash about me in the comments. I didn't see that in the interview. No,
Bobby Klein. See, look, Bobby dropping names in the back page in the private chat.
Look, I think just in general, and this probably goes to the plan of action as well. I think that if you think that you're going to build community by reproducing gossip, I just think you're wrong. And I think it's really that simple. If you want to bring people together, then, have conduct that likely brings people together. So, if you think that there's something that you can do, like you see Cam Newton, for example, he was aware of an issue with the guys on the Pivot. And I don't know if people are aware of that, but the Pivot was originally owned by Brandon Marshall. And Brandon Marshall is an African-American guy, and he had all African-American correspondents on the show with him. And he wants to take a different direction than four of the correspondents. The correspondents wanted to do the show the way that it was in perpetuity. There was a splitting off, and Brandon Marshall owned the majority share, even though all five of them were equal partners in the production of the show. So this led to a rift. And Cam has been attempting through his show to bring these parties together by giving each of the parties an opportunity to tell their truth, but not doing it in a way of saying, so-and-so said this. He's just asking them, what is your truth? And then he is playing devil's advocate and saying, well, couldn't it also be understood this other way? Trying to show that the distance is really not as great as the parties believe. And that is one way to try to bring people together, is to show that you have a legitimate reason for believing what you do, but so does the other person. And as an attorney, that is a job that I engage in all the time, because I have an offer or I have a resolution in mind, and then other counsel has a resolution in mind. And sometimes I have to remind them that although I did not reproduce what you said, what I said is not that different. And that makes me successful in what I do. And I do that on a micro level every day. And
that's why they say that the prosecutor and the defense attorney are together, and it's a conspiracy.
But I believe that's something that we can all do. You go to the car dealership and they tell you this is what the car costs. Then you argue with them about what it costs, and you find a price. And that's really what conflict resolution is about. It's not about coming in there and listing all the reasons that you can't work together. And I think that we have to get away from that as a mode of conflict resolution, of focusing on the reasons that we disagree. And that's going to be the plan of action that I would put forth.
Yeah, my plan of action would be that there is value in bringing up a conflict between two people. I think this is just a continuation of what you're saying. If you plan on teaching people how to resolve the issue, and I think that's very valuable. There was a past person on Sea Talk who was really interested in doing that on an episode, and I was against it. And then they kind of threw it in my face. We're like, well, if we don't resolve this matter on Sea Talk, then how are we teaching the community how to resolve conflict? And I didn't want to be put in a situation where I'm just not taking the advice or turning out all the brilliant ideas, of someone. So I let it happen, and it failed miserably. I got cussed out. I got demeaned. I was just like, okay, I think we're done here. And then when we got off the phone, you know what I'm saying? In private, offline, they wanted to call me. Well, I guess that didn't go well. You think? So what I'm saying is, I think there is value. I think there is value in exposing and instigating if it's like almost like a workshop or a public service announcement of what to do. You know what I mean? And you resolve it in front of you, and you almost have like a step-by-step process of how you do it. You know what I'm saying? And a person who's a trained conflict resolution specialist, I'll get all nerdy about it, but that's what I do every single day. You know what I'm saying? With students and also adults. You know what I'm saying? More so students, but it's always interesting when I have to do it with adults. You know what I'm saying? Because I see so much of the high school student in these adults. You know what I mean? But I would say the plan of action is, start a movement where you start making entertainment and getting incentives from bringing people together. I think that would be dope. I think everybody would love to have seen at some point a podcast where Martin Luther King and Malcolm X sit there on the same podcast and go at it and then resolve it. That would have been dope. Or, you know what I'm saying? Booker T. Washington and W. Du Bois go at it. Or, W. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey. These are people who used to call each other like all kinds of just derogatory stuff.
Moon crickets and all that.
Really, crazy. Bobby? Really, Bobby?
I had to throw in some early 1900s racial slander. Had to throw it in.
That is a horrible slur, bro.
We had to look that up. I had to look it up once, and it stuck with me.
Well, W. Du Bois was at his finest when he just kept it simple and just called him a big black gorilla. So
it's terrible. These are our heroes we're talking about, by the way. These are our heroes.
Oh man.
Even they not spared to get slides sometimes.
Exactly.
They're not spared. Exactly. My plan of action would be, when entering any kind of interview, all parties are responsible for their part. Whether you are the one answering, or you want asking the question, or you sitting bystander watching that shit go down, you eating it up and you making it your life. You are responsible in some form of action for that same. And I know that we trying to create shows or platform where it's some positivity, but I think I kind of go back to what Bobby once said a while back. I think you said to Trisha, Bobby, but you made a very good point that I still remember to this day. And that is, look here, you could be in the business of bringing people together, or you in the business of making money. But trying to do both is probably going to be virtually impossible to do, because when you have morals instead, it's not all the time. Unfortunately, moral generates money. Unfortunately, there's going to be some underhandedness in it. Do I wish it was through the route of gossip and rumor? I think we could do something a little more constructive. But at the end of the day, as long as there is a demand or a need for it, it's always. And that's why people are jumping on these bandwagons, because they know it's money or some sort of action. And what people are in right now is making people doing anything they can to use or get some. Chasing is literally one of the most dangerous things out there right now. Out chasing to get that sort of that virtual social media fame, I think it's becoming a little dangerous at it. So again, what you say, whether you in an interview or even on this social media platform, you are responsible for it. Even myself, who have left some bombs on this show, I am responsible for that. But I don't care, because I meant what I said. And that's my plan of action. So with that being said, y'all be safe out there.
Hey, okay, thank you. Thank you, Precious. We didn't even talk about old girl asking Most Def is Drake hip hop. That was just a
I don't think I didn't watch. See, that's one interview I didn't watch, Bobby. I didn't watch that interview, but I don't know what to say about Drake. I mean, I could kind of see by that point why people would say that, because you hear his music playing Target time to time. I'm like, damn, it is elevator music now that we playing up in here. But hey, I don't.
I mean, and you know what? You know what? We hear a lot of rap songs at Target and at the mall. Doesn't mean they're not hip hop. I hear Rappers Delight all the time. But
you hear Beyonce at Target. Like,
yeah. When I ask people if Sugar Hill Gang is hip hop, even though they didn't even write their own lyrics, they'd be like, heck yeah, the hip hop. There was some of the forefathers. They the frontier makers. I'm like, but Drake isn't hip hop? Oh, okay, all right. But hey,
I think there's subdivisions of hip hop though. I think there's certain subdivision of hip hop that I think get appreciated or recognized more than others. I think it is kind of like with Kid and Play, Once Upon a Time, and Heavy D. Like a lot of their music wasn't really about the gangsters or anything of violence. They were more fun. It was more radio friendly and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, a lot of people in the rap hip hop community kind of dissed them, and unfortunately, I think that's why we don't see that kind of hip hop much anymore.
Yeah, we could do an episode on that.
Yeah, we could definitely do an episode on that. I may not be as in depth as both of you, but yeah, sure.
You might. I mean, I don't think that I have that much depth on that either. I just think that it's sad to me because if we reverse this, right? Like if you took a commercial rapper and you said to him, you know, is Talib Kweli, Mos Def, MF Doom, are these guys, are they hip hop? And they said no, they would get killed in the comments by the intellectual hip hop crowd. And they would say, you like dumb rap, or you like ignorant or anti-intellectual music. But someone from that community who's very vulnerable, by the way, to that kind of attack is commenting on a rapper who's commercially successful, saying that that doesn't count. And I think that that's wild coming from someone who's supposed to be sophisticated on the genre, because he is a hip hop pioneer. So it's like, why would you say this? But I'll give him credit because the people that he listed are all the same. Like when he started talking about MF Doom, it was very clear that he was picking one subgenre of hip hop and excluding all others. So I don't think that you can take his critique seriously, because he was very clear in this respect that he doesn't apparently count the majority of the genre. He's counting his little niche as the only one. And that's the only way for me to take that comment seriously.
And that kind of reminds me now of MC Hammer. Because I remember somebody talking about how MC Hammer have not came to any of the hip hop awards or whatever, because I guess they did MC Hammer kind of wrong back in the day. Because I guess they were telling him that you laughing. They were saying that he wasn't hip hop because right. I guess he got commercialized. He was having cereal and shows and stuff like that. Like he kind of broke down that barrier to transition from hip hop to business. And right. I guess during that time frame, unfortunately, he got a lot of pushback saying you a sellout or whatnot. And that's why we kind of really haven't seen MC Hammer. But I mean, of course, it's money troubles, of course, but that's kind of what it is. And I forgot who it was who talked about that. And I'm like, that's a damn shame.
I think it was in a movie, right? Where like they showed a scene where it was a Hammer concert and they had like a security guard. He was like, ain't no black people here. And that was really aggressive. But I saw that.
Hammer was a very unattractive rapper. I would tell you that much. His rapping was very unattractive. It wasn't pleasant on the ears.
You think he was good? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he was good to over 1 million people. I'm not saying he's not good. I'm just saying I was there for the dance moves. I had parachute pants. Okay. I always thought it was interesting how Mos Def gets in these interviews and these exchanges with people who ask questions, but they're not as sophisticated in, like responding to his response. This is a person who is extremely commercially successful via his role in hip hop. If he was so anti-commercial, then he wouldn't have been in all the movies that he was in because of his role in hip hop as a rapper. He'd been like, nah, I'm not into exploiting the art form. I am a rapper.
If
I will not be in your movies and cross-market myself and cross-genre myself and be commercial. Like, he's had a lot of commercial success, hence the reason why we know who Mos Def is, or Yasin Bey. But that's also the reason why he changed his name. It's because people were commercializing his Mos Def name and setting up fake Twitter accounts.
Really?
That's why he changed his name to Yasin Bey, because he didn't want to be a commodity. Mos Def had became a commercial commodity. That's why he was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go to Africa. Everyone wants to go to Africa. And then he couldn't get back in because he had one of those global passport, and he had like the standard passport. But he did mention that, and he said at one point in an interview, I think he was on Dave Chappelle's show. I'm not Dave Chappelle, pardon himself. He was on the People's Party with Dave Chappelle and Talib Kweli when he said, "Of course I'm commercial. As soon as you sell something, you become commercial." But it takes a distinguished and sophisticated interviewer to get him to that point, but if you wanted to get him to the point where he just bashes Drake to get the views up so then we can see what Drake says about him, then you do what she did.
I thought Drake cooked him in his response, honestly.
I didn't read it yet. Don't spoil it for me. I've been no. What did he say?
Well, I mean, he has an interview from Method Man where he's talking about what hip hop is, and he talks about how broad of an art it is, and he also quotes Mos Def in a tweet, and he's like, "What did Umi say? Shine my light on the world. Like, let me do that." And I just think that's perfect. Like, I'm doing me. Like, that's all that needs to be said. When you're doing numbers like that, you don't owe anybody a response. Like, I'm the #1 Billboard artist of all time. Don't talk to me. That would have been my response. So I thought he handled it really well. But I also don't like it when people use whoever is at the top just to use them as a backboard to shoot off of.
Right.
And I think that's the greatest compliment, because Drake has an issue with not being recognized as a Black artist. But to me, that's the greatest evidence that these other Black artists consider you a part of the community, because they're using you as the platform now, as the launching pad. If they didn't see that, they don't do that with Eminem. They don't do that. They're just like, oh, he's not a part of this. We're not going to make that comparison. That comparison's inappropriate. He's a guest here. But Drake, they go right at him. So I think that's interesting. I think that he should take comfort.
Wild that the number of people that say Drake is not Black is wild to me.
That's crazy.
But I mean, he's biracial.
It's a perception. Like, that's the choice they get to make.
Precious got a new episode for us, boy.
I mean, he's biracial.
He said he's not Black.
It's a bad thing.
I don't think
he's not Black. He's biracial.
But he is. I mean, we're not going to do this. Oh, I'm not going to do that. Nope.
Nope. There are some people say that if you don't have a Black mother, you're not Black. There are people that say that.
Are you bringing up the people I think you're bringing up to wear the purple shirt? Are you talking about the purple shirt people?
Or it could be the divester movement too.
I mean, he a biracial. I mean, I don't know how he identified, but he is a biracial. He is biracial.
It's a matter of fact.
I think he does identify as a Black man. I do think he does. But
he's Black. He also identifies as a Jewish guy.
Black Jews though. So, hey, this has been a great reunion.
Don't get me started.
Bobby, you can take your Black Italian self to bed now.
I'm biracial. What can I say? What can I say?
Hey, when you're biracial, you say biracial. So
Oh.
you know, you're just you're ambiguous now.
And we didn't bring up
Not
Dave
even a
Chappelle.
race, bro.
Oh man, we didn't bring up Dave Chappelle's response to Katt Williams either, but I guess we'll do that on a maybe.
Yeah,
on a
we
hot
can do a
seat.
part 2 to that because I think hey, that was a good response. That was very sophisticated, Dave. Yeah, she's talking about how Dave said, man, I find it very interesting that all he was doing is talking about other black fellow comedians and he didn't talk about none of these white people. I thought that was a good point.
I mean, I find it interesting Dave said that. I mean, most of your audience is most of Dave Chappelle fan base is white people. I'm surprised he didn't say anything. But I guess that's another
You think so?
episode.
I think it's a pretty healthy split, man. I think Dave got a lot of black followers, man.
Especially among black conservative people too. Especially he's the good.
Black heterosexual men.
Yeah.
I bet he do.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not in there? You're not in there, Precious? You don't identify?
I'm just saying Dave Chappelle do a lot of pop-ups here in Austin quite frequently. So I was like, I'm pretty proud of majority of his audience is mostly white. But I do get what y'all say in terms of gets on a larger platform, especially social media wise. I'm just saying that nigga be down here a whole lot, and ain't that many niggas in here.
That's because there's more white consumers than black consumers. So we could say the same thing about hip hop. Your hardest, blackest hip hop artist is, blackest hip hop artist is gonna have a majority white fan base. That's just how
Uzi Vert got all the white fans.
Who?
Like, that exactly. I'm just saying.
No, you don't be exactly. Everyone knows who he is for the most part.
We got someone right here who don't know who he is.
Who? Who we saying? What's the name?
I said for the most part.
Little.
So hold on. We got to talk about this.
Little
Let's
Uzi.
take a minute before we get off. You don't like Dave Chappelle, Precious?
Yeah, I like Dave Chappelle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like Chappelle, but I can like somebody and still point out something very interesting about that person. Yeah, I like Dave Chappelle.
All right. It's been Seed Talk, stuff to make your seed walk, and we're out. We'll see y'all next time. Make sure you are sharing. Make sure you're commenting. Make sure that you're donating, and we